Welcome to the Podcast Interview Marketing Show. Today, we've got something special lined up for you. Our guest is Bryce Henson. Now, Bryce is the CEO of Fit Body Bootcamp. It's a franchise you've probably seen before. And we're diving deep into how podcast guesting supercharged his brand and helped him connect with his ideal audience, not only of consumers, the B2C, but also the B2B in getting out there and getting new franchisees. You see, Bryce has used podcast interviews to build relationships, to tell his story, and to scale a thriving franchise. And he's going to share exactly how he does it. Now, if you've ever wondered how to turn listeners into loyal customers by leveraging your story, this episode's for you. Bryce has grown his personal brand and also his business with this strategy, and so can you. Stick around for actionable insights you can apply to your next interview.
Hey, Bryce. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited. I've had the pleasure of following your journey and Fit Body's journey, but I am excited to share your journey with our listeners. So before we get started, would you mind just sharing a little bit about kind of you and Fit Body and your journey with podcasts and such?
Yeah, so my name is Bryce Henson. I'm the CEO of Fit Body Bootcamp, which is the fastest growing international indoor fitness bootcamp franchise on the planet. We have a few hundred locations in North America. About 90% are in the States, about 10% in Canada. And our mission is to inspire fitness and change lives every day, which I'm a huge fitness enthusiast and really excited to share our mission and continue to grow our brand across North America. Because let's face it, friends, we have a big health crisis in our country. 80% of our population is either statistically obese or overweight. So Fit Body Bootcamp and my team of incredible teammates and also coaches and franchise partners are helping the cause. Jessica, our relationship, we've been connected for a few years now, along with your colleague, Tom, and Interview Valet has had a big part in our story, if you will, through, story selling, as I like to, refer to it as. This is a great opportunity for me as an attractive character of the brand, attracting other franchise partners into our brand, for me to be able to develop a relationship. So it's just been an incredible relationship and journey throughout our partnership, and excited for it to continue.
Absolutely. So what made you turn to podcasts in the beginning? What did you look at podcasting differently from other marketing ventures that you've done?
Yeah, well, I think my business partner, who's a world-class visionary and marketer, his name is Bedros Keuilian, he's always, I shouldn't say always had a podcast, but ever since about 2015 and 16. So he was one of the first ones to really pioneer the space. So I saw that success. And it wasn't until probably fast forward until 2017, 18, 19, if you will, when I was really diving into the content of Russell Brunson of ClickFunnels, who is also a world-class marketer, and he really talks about podcasting. So between seeing the success of my business partner, Bedros, hearing and being a student of marketing and leadership with Russell Brunson and seeing his incredible marketing execution, really strongly recommending podcasting, not only launching your podcast, but also guest podcasting. That was kind of the perfect storm, if you will, to really ignite my passion, and decided to launch my own podcast and also to guest podcast with Interview Valet.
Right, which is Fitness CEO, correct? Your podcast?
We actually just rebranded it. And so I'm very excited actually to announce in July of this year, 2024, we shifted away from the branding, the Fitness CEO, into the CEO Show with Bryce Henson, where I teach leadership, I promote capitalism, and I defend free speech. So my new branding is the CEO Show.
I love it. Awesome. So when thinking about podcasting, obviously it's a little different because you get to share your story and connect on a kind of a deeper level. Did you have any specific goals for the brand in mind? I know you had talked about marketing. That's where you're going to get out to all your franchisees. That's what you wanted as marketing content. Was there any other goals, or can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, well, I think for my business specifically, there's a long sales process. So I run a fitness franchise, as I just articulated. And when a new franchise partner is coming on to do business and opening of their location, it's not, hey, I see an ad, let me turn my credit card, and all of a sudden I'm a Fit Body Bootcamp owner. It's typically, 6 to 12 months of diligence, of research, of making sure this is a good fit for both of us, making sure funding's sorted. So it's definitely a long process in order to connect, which really for us specifically gives us the opportunity to use this platform and podcasting to sell my story, if you will, to really connect me with my future franchise partners. So it's a relationship builder. really be the best way to describe it. And that's really, really important for my business because, again, the process from when someone finds about Fit Body Bootcamp to launching their own location could take upwards of a year. So my future audience listening to me, engaging with me being able to tell my story throughout that whole process really indoctrinates my future client, and then really has helped me develop a strong relationship with my clients.
That's wonderful. And so starting off, did you have any challenges that you and FitBody and any other people that were out there on podcasts speaking about FitBody, anything that you may have come across as far as, kind of using podcasting for a marketing strategy?
Well, yeah, it's exciting and there's so much value to the opportunity because, again, I want to hit the value more time. You're able to build a relationship and tell your story in a very organic and conversational way, which I think for me versus like a highly produced piece of content where there's a time and a space for that. But there's also a time and a space for just organically sharing your message, your story, and indoctrinating your audience with your personality as the attractive character. So I think, again, that's the value there. The challenge, though, it's a skill set. It's a skill set learning how to either be interviewed or to give an interview or to interview someone else. So just like anything in life, when you attack a new project or initiative with a lot of moving parts, there's definitely a skill set. You need reps and sets to get good. In fact, I would say until you get through at least 50 interviews as a guest interviewer or execute 50 interviews as a podcast host, you really can't complain because it takes a little bit of time to get good. And shoot, I'm 200 episodes in my own podcast, and I've been a guest of well over 100 episodes as an interviewee, and I'm still getting good, Jessica. I'm still, perfecting my message and getting better. So the mountain is long, but yes, to answer your question, it's a skill set. So you need to have an understanding that coming in, it's going to take patience. It's going to take a curiosity frame to get better at it.
Absolutely. And that's Tom obviously it's a different way to gain that know, like, trust. You're able to kind of create that quicker than you would any other sort of marketing funnel or channel or anything. So as far as to your point that it's a skill set, is there anything, kind of any lessons learned or any advice you've had on that skill set? I know Tom talks about bringing it back to the heart at the end because that's what you're doing is you're connecting. But do you have any lessons that you've learned or any advice to share?
Yeah, it's interesting what I've learned about because this is a marketing channel, and there's a famous adage in marketing that facts tell and stories sell. And the beautiful part about the podcasting, you have the ability to tell your story. So what I learned in a little tip or strategy, now I have a stories list because, of all the things that happen in life from travels, adventures, business, etc. And those stories, and the more challenging the story or the more challenge a story has contained within it, the better it is to be able to connect with your audience and to build that know, like, and trust factor. So now I have a list of stories where if I'm, flying to an event or something, happens here or there, I now document that story and I'm going to use that as my, arsenal, if you will, to be able to communicate that. So that would be, one learning lesson, but probably the foundational one is really getting a good understanding of who you are and your origin story into the particular, product or service that you sell. So for me, my origin story, being I'm a CEO of a international fitness brand, was my first touch with fitness. And I used to use the running joke that I grew up in the Midwest, which is a great place, amazing salt of the earth people, but not the fitness capital of the world. And the CEO of this international fitness brand used to be allergic to lifting weights, and fast food is a staple of his diet. So I say that in jest, but that's part of my origin story because I wasn't this fitness guy from day one. In fact, I went through my own transformation back in 2007. Then I became a certified personal trainer. Then I decided starting to coach some clients in the nights and weekends. Then I took the next step to become a Fit Body Bootcamp owner in 2012, scaled to a handful of locations. Then my business partner offered me the vice president role, which then eventually transitioned to CEO role. So with that, having my origin story, dialed in is an incredible tool. And I learned to craft and perfect that through storytelling, through podcasting. However, the beautiful thing is that by you telling your story and getting comfortable with that, not only can you use that in podcasts, you can use that on stages and presentations, and it literally can go with you in all aspects of your marketing.
Right. It's definitely tools that you can learn. You make me laugh about Midwest because just moved back to Minnesota and it is not the capital of health food. I feel like I've been eating roasted chicken constantly, and I'm like, nope, we got to get back to our health origins here. Going back to kind of what you said about using, your notebook and writing that down, I think that's genius as well because a lot of times, especially with how many podcasts you've done, you end up kind of hitting almost Groundhog's Day, where they start sounding the same. So kind of writing that down, documenting that, and using that to be able to kind of create new content, I think is super smart. So back to what we talked about before, as far as that skill set, how do you ensure that and I know you've told your origin story and such, but the core values and mission of Fit Body Bootcamp, how are you ensuring that that is coming across clearly in podcast interviews?
Yeah, well, I think for me and my brand, it's more my personal core value. And what I realized, the value in, franchising system and a value to my future clients and future franchise partners is to get them connected with me. So Russell Brunson talks about this, who I've referred to. He's, by the way, the founder of ClickFunnels, which is a marketing tool service, who initially I found, interview Valet through John Lee Dumas, who's, a friend and client there. But in any case, all this to say is Russell talks about, creating an attractive character. Every business should have an attractive character in the business. And for me, I'm the attractive character for Fit Body. So I'm talking to a future client named Shane. We call him Shane 2.0. He's not 1.0. It's not his first rodeo. Shane's in his mid 40s. He has a couple kids. He's been successful, all things considered, for traditional standards. However, he's lacking fulfillment. He's lacking purpose. And he goes through an experience with fitness in his mid or early to mid 40s that changes his, focal point. And he realizes, holy smokes, there's more to life than, being a middle manager in middle America. There's something he said about, creating a life of freedom and impact for my family, for my team, for my community, and for my clients. So being able to really connect with Shane at a deep level, talk a little bit about my struggles, my insecurities, like how I've overcome them, what that does. And from a core value perspective, it attracts my dream avatar, dream client to me. And then ultimately, because they're attracted to me, then they become attracted to my organization. So for me specifically, I've used the podcasting platform to connect the audience with me more so than even my company, but then I'm the glue that connects me with my company is how it all works.
Absolutely. And I loved that when I started working with you, that you're like, this is Shane. This is everything about Shane. And it was so detailed that you almost visualize that as a real person, right? Shane 2.0. And that's who you're talking to when you're talking to the listeners and such, which I think brings out a level of connection that a lot of people don't have yet or haven't developed that skill set, that you really know how to connect with the listeners, Bryce, which I think is wonderful.
Thank you. And that's probably a good opportunity as well. If you're listening to this right now and either you haven't worked with Interview Valet and Jessica, it's really important to understand not only your business, but understand what's your dream client, who's the person you're trying to serve. And the more clear you can create that profile, number one, that's good for you and your marketing, your business growth efforts. But also two, when you communicate that to Jessica and team, then she has that dream client profile. Then she can look for other podcasts that have your dream client on them. And then that will increase the probability for quicker success within this particular marketing philosophy.
For sure. And I'm sure there's listeners out there thinking like, hey, that's great. I'd love to go out, connect with my list or connect with my audience and talk about myself and my journey and such. But did you or Fit Body, do you have any measurable impact, or what sort of measurable impact, can't even speak today, did podcast interviews have on, your brand recognition, your growth? Have you been able to measure that?
I think from a data perspective, and again, for me specifically, I'm measuring my growth on my social media platforms. And really at the end of the day, I am the main face and marketer for Fit Body Bootcamp, if you will. So we have a force multiplying effort. This is just one particular tactic within a bigger strategy. But my following specifically on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and then YouTube has just crossed over 100,000 followers. And my particular podcast just crossed a 1.5 million views. So again, every single time I'm, in an Interview Valet interview or a guest interview, I'm talking about, my origin story, my connectivity point. There's always a tie into Fit Body Bootcamp and the product and service that we offer. But really what I'm doing is connecting them to me. So my profile has grown, and subsequently we have, people all the time who are joining our brand because of their connection with me as the attractive character. So that's, from a metric perspective, a big thing we focused on, but also too, just using this content to force multiplier marketing efforts. So I'm obviously on the phone with you, Jessica, right now. We're on this particular podcast. When the episode is going to be finished, it's going to be pushed out, et cetera. But I also have my media team here record me on the side, and they're able to take different sound clips and little bites from our particular conversation. And then I'm able to market those and use that on my LinkedIn, on my Instagram, et cetera, to, again, get more, I guess, juice from the squeeze from this particular podcast platform. So there's a lot of different ways that you can take the content, repackage it up to deliver more, I guess, results, which is really the name of the game for all marketers out there.
Absolutely. You can get so much content. I think Tom had said he got like 22 pieces of content from one podcast interview just by slicing, dicing, doing all of that. So were there any particular interviews or episodes that you've done that you found were, significantly boosted your exposure and ultimately FitBody's exposure? And what do you think made those so impactful?
I would love to say there was just one silver bullet, one conversation that I got on. And after that conversation, all of a sudden the leads started flowing. Jessica, I can't. And that's okay. And I think that's the wrong expectation. So for me, my mindset around this, it's a force multiplier. Consistency compounds with time. So this is just one aspect of your entire marketing game plan, but it's a very important aspect at that. But I look at it as the ability for me to be able to create content, push content in the ethers, also repackage and repurpose the other content. In addition to this, getting comfortable talking about Fit Body Bootcamp, talking about our client success stories, talking about my origin story, talking about my core values, really talking about the things that are personal to me that really connect my audience with me as well. So I look at this as not just, hey, I do one interview and all of a sudden the leads and the sales come in. I look at this as a force multiplier that with time, energy, and focus, consistency compounds. And I've been at the effort for going on 3 years and I have no plans of stopping.
I love that you say that because a lot of people come in, they're like, okay, I did 3 interviews and why don't I have, 5 leads now and such. And it's really a marathon. It's not a sprint. You said, you've done well over 100 just on the guesting side and you're not stopping. You're continuing to go. And that is what it is it's the long term. It's the SEO that you're getting from it. And there's a new thing that Tom's really diving into called LMO, which is the language model optimization, which is now using ChatGPT. Like people have found us on ChatGPT and just even saying what's the best fitness franchise, they Google that and add that into ChatGPT. And FitBody comes up, and that's through podcast interviews that they're searching, that the big language models. I don't understand it. I wish I did. But yeah, so what advice would you give someone who's looking to start maybe with a partner on their own as far as kind of getting their own strategy and their own journey with podcasting? Do you have any advice, maybe looking to follow your journey and your kind of path using podcasts?
Well, I think for me, both guesting on podcasts, like what I'm doing right here, and also launching my own podcast, that actually has helped really, really well, being that force multiplier. But my first step would not be to recommend, if you're listening to this right now, like, hey, I am interested in, getting on more of the podcast circuits or launching a podcast. My first step wouldn't be for you to launch your own podcast. My first step would be for you to be an interviewer or interviewee on other podcasts like I'm doing right now, because it's a skill set in of itself to have a conversation, to be able to tell your origin story, get comfortable with that. And you're going to need to do that already. So that's the first level of skill set. But then when you launch your own podcast, there's just another amount of skills that and time that have to go into that. So I like to take the stepladder approach. So, connecting with a company like yours, Interview Valet, is like the quickest path to success. So I would just start now, because it's going to take a little time for you to get good at this, which is the common theme of this particular conversation. So that's really, really important to start. And then as you get more comfortable, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months in, then you can launch your own platform. And then what happens is you can actually do guest podcasting so it can force multiply the effort. But that would be probably my biggest recommendation to start now. Start with being a guest on other podcasts. And then over the next 6, 12, 18 months, once you develop that skill set, then you can launch your own and continue to stack, force multiply the effort.
Right. Well, it's really the best of both worlds because you're getting on podcasts, you're getting the content, but you're also utilizing their audience. You're not, creating your own podcast and worrying about the editing and all of that, which I'm sure you have a team that does it now. But when you're doing it by yourself, it's a lot. And so utilizing other people's audience is the best, I think the best step in getting that brand exposure and growth. So do you have any last tidbits, anything you'd like to share about your podcasting journey at all or FitBody's journey?
Well, it was interesting. I was always kind of fascinated with the opportunity to kind of get more exposure, use podcasting as a way to grow my own exposure, but also to grow my brands. And I was nervous. I was scared for such a long time. And I wish I could say that when I decided to do this venture a few years ago, it was the first time I thought about that. And that's just not the case. I probably was thinking about it for years in advance. And my biggest regret, Jessica, is I didn't start earlier. So if you're listening to this right now and you have a message, you have a product, you have a service, you have to understand there's someone going to bed crying to sleep at night because your product, your service, they haven't found yet. You have a duty, obligation, responsibility to create your product, to market your product, and podcasting guessing is a great way to start. So my call to action is to live with the urgency. The time is now. It's not yesterday or tomorrow. The time is now. So that's probably the biggest call to action. And that's really all I have for you today, Jessica. Is there anything else for me?
I don't think so. No, I love that you say that because I feel, Tom always says that the world needs to hear you more than ever now. So definitely. Well, how can people connect with you? I know, you have your podcast, which is great to listen to, leadership, all of that. Any other ways that the listeners can connect with you, Bryce?
Yeah, I appreciate that. The best way, I love teaching leadership, and I created a free leadership course. So go to my website, brycehenson.com/leadership. That's brycehenson.com/leadership. Take advantage of my free leadership course, and I look forward to continue to add value.
Awesome. Thanks, Bryce.
Thanks, Jessica.
Wow, that was incredible. What a great conversation with Bryce Henson. Now, he shared some real gems on how podcast interviews can be a powerful force multiplier for your brand, your personal brand, and your business brand. One takeaway, it's all about consistency and connection. Bryce highlighted how telling your personal story builds that know, like, and trust factor. It can help people deeply connect with you and your brand. It's not just about another interview. It's about repurposing that content to continue the conversation long after the episode airs. So here's your next step. Start building your own story, just like Bryce does, and use it to craft a compelling narrative that will resonate with your audience. Remember, the time to get started is now. Your ideal customers are out there waiting to hear from you.